All right, hello and welcome back. Brett here with ClickMill.co. In this video, we're talking about incentives and what happens with your incentive structures when you scale your ministry or organization. Now, if you think like most people think, I think everybody thinks this way, we think linearly. So if we put in 10 hours of work, we're going to get this amount of results. And if we put in 20 hours of work, we're going to get exactly this amount of results. And everything just increases sort of step by step in an even sort of fashion. This is not how the world works. This is not how systems work. If you are creating a ministry or a business, they do not work linearly. They work exponentially or non-linearly. So you start with a little, and then all of a sudden just whoop, and it shoots straight up. And this is just how life is in general. This is a feature of reality, is exponential feedback loops. Okay. And so what I mean, I'll just give you an example. I'm stealing a little bit here from Jordan Peterson. If any of you are familiar with him, he's sort of a conservative psychologist and philosopher. Okay, so what happens when you begin to make good choices? And let's say you work really hard and you put away some money as a savings and something bad happens. Well, you're safer because you've got a buffer there. Well, then you have enough savings you can start to invest, and then your money starts making you money. And so now you've got your money making you money and you're safe from, certain events. Okay. And then you continue to do the work that you do and you get really good at it. You master your trade, whatever it is. And you do that for 40 years, and everybody around you knows you're super good at it. And they just are going to continually come to you because they trust you. What's going to happen? You're going to get growth. You're just going to go up and up and up and up faster and faster and faster. And the more people that trust you, the more people that trust you. It's really hard to get your first testimonial because nobody knows who you are and they don't know what you do and they don't know what you're about. But once someone trusts you and they're like, hey, actually, you did a really good job. Here's your testimonial. And the next testimonials come faster than the first one because you're piggybacking off of the first one. And so this is, for example, why wealth seems to accumulate to the few, because the few people know how to use wealth in such a way that they continue to get more of it. And it's an exponential loop to infinity and beyond. And at least in the US, it's like, 90% of the wealth is with like 10% of the population. Okay. Now, I don't have a problem with that because what that means is I don't need 90% of the wealth, but I can be the type of person who knows how to use money in a way that I won't ever be short on money. And that's great. Okay. So that is a positive feedback loop. Now, the same thing is true on the negative end. Well, what happens? Let's say I was moving in the positive direction. I put away a few $1,000 or whatever it is, I've got some money in the account and I'm doing okay. But then, my friend's like, hey, here's some hard drugs. You should try this crack cocaine. And I'm like, hey, sure. And then I do that. And then what happens? Then I get an addiction. And then I go blow all the money on my addiction. And then I'm out of money. So I quit paying my rent and I keep feeding my addiction. And then I'm living under a bridge. And what? I stole I went to my mother's house. I've literally heard people who've done this, by the way. So if this doesn't sound familiar, this actually happens. But yeah, like I went to my family's house and I got their cards and I stole the money in their banks to feed my addiction. So now I've ostracized my family. I'm not providing for my wife and kids, and I'm under some bridge somewhere and they're destitute. Like these are real things that can happen to people. That is a negative feedback loop. You went from making a little bad choice. I guess in that scenario, you just went straight to hard drugs. So you went from a big bad choice to a lot of big bad consequences very quickly. But you started here, you were kind of in the middle, you had some savings and you went right off the edge. This is true in business, this is true in life. The more good choices you make, the more good results you get. And the more good results you get, the more good results come to you. And this is what we call the Matthew principle. And the Matthew principle says, to those who do not have, take even what they have and give it, take even what they do have and give it to the one who has the 5 talents or whatever it is. This is the Matthew principle. This is true, I think, in heaven. It's also true on earth. if we're the person who buries our talent in the ground, we don't use what God has given us, we don't apply, it is removed from us and it is given to someone who does. And that's just the way it works. This happens all of the time in economic downturns, for example. Again, financially, it's just easy to imagine money, so that's why I use that a lot. Not that it's the most important, but financially, when there is a huge recession or depression, that's when people get the richest. Everybody's panicking, everybody's freaking out. There was a guy in the Great Depression in the United States who happened to have 10,000 bucks set aside. Why? Because he made some good decisions and put away some money. And when the downturn came and nobody was ready, he's just sitting there. He's like, I'm all right. And he's living on what he's normally doing. And he took $10,000 and he bought only stocks that were valued under $1. And everybody called him crazy because, oh, they're all going to go out of business. It's panic. Everybody freak out. And then, of course, some of them did go out of business, but the money that was left, all of those businesses turned around and shot way back up, got bigger than they'd ever been before. And he was one of the wealthiest people in the world for like decades after that. Why? Because he just knew how to make good choices when everybody else was flipping their biscuits. And that is, so he made exponential returns on what he invested. And that's what I want you guys to do when you go out into your ministries with your life and your time and all this stuff. You invest, but you do it in a way that gets exponential returns. That's what we're trying to learn here. So all of that to say, when you scale your ministry, when you scale your system, the way in which your time or whatever it is that you're using for your incentive structure can be affected, it may not be linear. It may not go up slowly. It may go up exponentially. Okay, so for example, let's say, and this is not the case as far as I'm aware, but these are the things that I'm looking for. Okay, so when we have 2 interns and I'm giving, let's say, 3 hours a week to each intern, we're doing 6 hours a week worth of calls. Cool. And then they're doing work on the back end and it's making it up. It's even. So my time, good. I'm scalable. We'll take more interns. All right. So I take more interns. Then we have 10 interns. Well, what happens? Well, like the first 2 interns, they kind of had a problem here and a problem there with projects they're working on. Well, that's not a big deal. It's only a couple problems. Well, what happens when I scale that up to 10 interns and some of those problems also scale up? Now we're working on bigger projects with bigger responsibilities. So not only am I doing 3 hours for each intern, which is the track I was on until we kind of restructured this. So now it's 30 hours a week for interns, not 6. But then 10 interns have 10 times the problems with their projects. And now I'm at 80 hours a week trying to, so it wasn't like, what do I want to say, a linear line going up. It's exponential. It just shoots right up. And it's like, whoop, this is going to blow up my life now because this is no longer sustainable. What happened? It's because systems are nonlinear by nature. So be aware that as you scale, you may need to rework some of your incentive structures and switch some of those things over. And that is a very common thing you will have to do as you see growth in your ministries and in the people engaging with the structures you set up. So they're exponential, they're not linear, and that means a mild change in growth can have a large impact on the resources, and you may not see that coming. So now you'll at least be aware that that's a possibility. Any thoughts or comments on this lesson?
Actually, yes.
Yep.
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, since a few months or even more, exactly Robert Kiyosaki, my favorite author ever, or one of my favorite. He's saying exactly that. He's always repeating it like a great recession is coming, something worse than 2008, and people are panicking, and everyone is freaking out. But he is not. He is excited. He is happy
Yep.
because smart people who make smart decisions on uh, the choices they make, uh, they will scale up so fast,
Yes.
and it will be so much easier than any other time. And he knows that, and that's the way he has become successful.
Yes.
And he's so so happy and excited for that moment, while everyone else, like he says, that average people are freaking out, and people with that kind of strategic type of thinking, making these smart choices,
Yep.
will be so much further from anyone else.
Yeah.
It just reminded me of that because I'm listening to him
Yes.
every day and he's always saying it.
Yeah. In every economic downturn, right? Whenever the economy goes down, someone's getting super, super rich, just so you guys know. So for me, it's like, what am I going to do? Well, is there going to be like, I'm not going to say there's a recession tomorrow. I'm not going to say it's coming in 10. Like, I don't know. But there's one coming at some point. They just come. So what do I want? Well, I want some cash up stored up on the side. So when the next real estate crash comes and people are getting foreclosed on and all this stuff, I can just go and buy up $10,000 properties. Like, have cash, because instead of paying $500,000 for a house, you can go show up on the steps of the courthouse and they're like, hey, anybody can own this if you just pay the bank the last $10,000 of the mortgage. And it's like, here's cash. And now I own a $500,000 property for 10,000 bucks. That's how they get wealthy, because they can just make average decisions when everybody else is losing their minds and panicking. So that's what I want to set you guys up financially, sure, but definitely for ministry. Anytime things get hard in life, in your country, you have an opportunity to grow your ministry exponentially faster than when times are easy. And if you're ready for it and you're ready to help people, and you've kind of, to the best of your ability, foresawn the problems that they may have, and you can come in and you've got the incentive structures ready to go and you can solve the problems, you're going to blow up. And so that's one of the things that I want you guys to be aware of too. Great point, Sophie. Excuse me. Great point, Kate. Sophie, what do you got?
So, talking about sustainability, I think you talked about growing exponentially. That is geometric progression. Like we have 7, then we have 15, then we have 35.
Yes.
Instead of just having 7, 9, 11. So I think numbers create sustainability. Okay, recently, that was yesterday, I was in church in the morning and there was this airdrop that came out and people were trying to hold the coin. You understand? I knew that those who came in early, we just less than a dollar, were able to cash out with $1,200 before that, like this morning. And I came back late, I could not do it. So on getting back, I did it a little bit higher than the rest, and I actually lost all my money. That is the number and the odds were against me. So looking at ClickMill, I was thinking perhaps talking about exponential growth, we could say that yeah, we have interns in the past, people have interned with you in the past, and we have current interns. There's one thing I've learned recently is numbers create encouragement. Like this number you talked about having where you have interns, like two interns that are interning 3 hours a week, and you just have both of them and the problems to solve. Now you have more interns and more interns are going to come, and you have to undo every intern and say, oh, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is how you solve it, and the work is getting bigger for you.
Right.
So creating a software where you have older interns like trying to be support to newer interns, and there's a community like where you do not have to
Yes.
solve this problem alone, but you have other interns that have done it in the past, creating support for newer interns.
Yes.
That reduces your workload. So the numbers
Excellent.
give you ease.
Excellent recommendation. Yes. And yes, that is actually something that I have begun experimenting with one of our more senior interns, Sophie. Kate, that is something I plan on experimenting on with you, with content creation, and allowing the interns who already have developed a skill set to then go and support the other interns with that skill set. So we do have a little bit of that, and I do plan in the future on continuing to do that. The reason why I'm doing most of the teaching right now is because I'm still filming out the courses. And one of the ways that you can save your time, and I just spoke with a guy who runs an online worship ministry school, and he has been teaching the same group of classes. He can't get enough students because he doesn't have enough time. This was Friday of last week, so like 4 days ago. He teaches all the classes, a PhD level music theory classes, all this stuff. He's been teaching all of the classes for the whole online college for like 10 years. And it takes his his entire work week just to prepare those lessons and have them ready to go. And he doesn't have time to do marketing. He doesn't have time. And since he can't do the marketing, what happens? He can't get more students. So he's basically stuck at 5 students a semester and he's barely getting by. What is the answer there? You got to get out of there. You've got to save the time. Why are you still rewriting the same lessons after 10 years? Can't you just put these online and just have them watch the lessons and then give them a 1-hour call each week and see if they have questions? And like you'd have thought I'd like said something crazy. He was like, wait a minute. Oh, because I just saved him 40 hours a week by saying, just take the videos you've already filmed and put them online and then have them watch that. Like put a paywall in front of them, something like that. That you can do that in 1 week. And that just saved him, but he's been doing that for 10 years. And so either way, coming back to what you're saying, Sophie, is yes, I'm absolutely considering training interns, because why? Because that makes you guys more skilled. I already know how to train. I already know how to teach marketing, but if you're teaching marketing, you're actually building a skill. What about a marketing manager? What if we have interns that are specializing in different things and fulfilling client tasks, and then someone who's learned all those areas manages the team? Marketing managers make a killing. They do really well. Over here in the US, you're talking like 80 to 150,000 a year. So, if you can actually get that level of experience, it helps me and it helps the person doing the increasingly difficult work. So that is a great recommendation. And that is something I'm planning on. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm trying to work myself out of just teaching every single week. And so a lot of those lessons you guys will be watching, I taught those once and I never have to teach them again, because I just kept teaching the same thing over and over for like a year and a half. And then one day I was like, why don't I just film these? So that's another way of removing yourself so that the incentives that I'm offering are scalable. Okay. Great thought, Sophie. Awesome.
We like to optimize our time and resources,
Exactly.
and to use the spare time and resources we have, and
Yes.
to pour them into something
Yes.
new and something more.
Yes. As our system grows, we're constantly re-optimizing our time and saying, okay, how do I remove myself from this part? How do I remove myself from this part? And this is what happens when you think of these people who are like up at the tippy top. It's like the CEO or the president or whatever it is, and they're just totally removed and they never see normal people like Hollywood people. How do they do that? It's because
By delegating tasks.
Yeah, they've started to delegate. They either automate it or they delegate it or they just eliminate the task. They're like, I'm not even doing that anymore. And they just remove themselves from all of these things until the only thing that they do is the thing that they love. So whether it's acting or whatever it is, and they're totally removed from everyone else. And it's like, man, that person just sort of disappeared into the ether. Well, that's great, because if it enables you to do the thing that you're really good at and you stop wasting time on things you don't need to be doing, you should definitely do that. And I mean, that's totally possible here with ClickMill. If someone in here wants to learn administrative skills to run a marketing firm and they want to answer all the emails and they want to be the go-between between me and the team and the staff and all this stuff, cool. And what happens now, I'm a little bit more hands off and I have more time to focus on strategy and forward motion and all these things. And then of course, be in trainings as well. But that's what you want to be doing. You want to be getting hands off in the areas where you shouldn't have hands on, and you want to be getting hands on in the areas where you should be hands on. So great thoughts, guys. Thank you so much for being with me in this section on creating incentive structures. I will see you in the next video. God bless.